The very first thing I did on Photoshop was make a fake ID. My name's Sam Whitney. I'm the owner and founder of Giclee, LA. I would just be hustling IDs in the hallway. You know, like if you want an ID, I'll take your picture in the hallway. I had my little pocket laminator and would just, you know, rock out a fake ID real quick and have it to you by lunch and get paid. And that was kind of like my little hustle back in like when I was like, 16, 15.
Since our first building the brand, MAEKAN's interest to have a bridge between the digital and analog world has been clear. Upon launch, we wanted to gift yearly members with something that fit MAEKAN, and honestly serve as a token of gratitude for joining the community. It also made sense to get our friends James, Jean, and Jun Cha involved, which resulted in 16 by 20 inch Giclee prints, each numbered and signed by the artists. Both James and Jun have this ability to create visually compelling work that extends to all corners of the globe. While it's conceptually clear what we wanted to achieve, we needed somebody to make it a reality. Enter Sam of Giclee, LA. As part of a multi-generational family of creators, he sort of stumbled into this world. His early fake ID quote-unquote business we first heard about was a suggestion of his entrepreneurial spirit. But as digital cameras became a bigger part of his so-called business, he started diving deeper into photography.
And so moving forward, like part of that process of making a fake ID, you needed to get an image. And this was before cameras on cell phones, you know, and like back when digital cameras were sort of just coming up. So I had like a little digital camera and started taking photos.
Now, Sam's father, a longtime documentary filmmaker, pushed him to enter the world of large format printing, which encompasses Giclee, a technique originally coined by Jack Duggan, who Sam would consider to be somewhat of a mentor, out of Santa Monica.
My father had backed and helped me purchase the first large format Epson 9800, I believe it was, that I got secondhand off one of his artist friends who used it for a project and had no more use for it. So then I picked it up, started immediately experimenting with larger format prints, and noticed that, like, you know, my little digital camera back in the day, like, didn't have enough sort of horsepower to produce a large format print. So I started really experimenting with medium format film and, you know, different sort of cameras and different sort of angles and lenses to try to get kind of larger files, and started kind of tinkering around more and more. And this was like prior to like Giclee LA even forming. This was me kind of just messing around with a computer and a giant printer and printing kind of whatever I want of my own work.
Having met Sam, one thing he's always quick to highlight is that the prints will only be as good as the quality of the files. And to understand what goes into a Giclee print is to follow the process before anything is even printed. It's about accurate reproduction.
It takes a lot of time and a lot of patience when you're playing with digital files and digital machines to really be accurate with definition and the color that's involved with printing.
There are fine details that require careful consideration, especially when making small tweaks here and there.
If you add more one color, you're going to get more of the other color, and like sometimes that kind of turns into a mess, and it can spiral out of control rather quickly unless you can, you know, really make subtle changes.
So what role does a printer play between the final product and the artist? To make it look as though you've done absolutely nothing. There should be nothing glaring to suggest the printer has tried to claim some of the fame with a heavy-handed touch.
I would say the majority of what sets these apart are that they're original art. And like in a world of fine art Giclee printing, or in a world of fine art printing, you're kind of only as good as your file. Like I'm sort of just a messenger between an ancient form and sort of new technology. In this case, it's sort of the latest and greatest in a digital printer. So my job is to simply translate their vision and their creation and get it onto a specific media, whatever that may be.
In addition to the overall philosophical approach, some tangible decisions can also affect the outcome. They include everything from paper stock to the size of the matte border. All of these factors can have a subtle effect on the final outcome.
Initially, I got the file and stared at it for a while, kind of looked at the detail and laid it out the best I sort of thought, my interpretation of like how it would look with the right border and the right size, and kind of went back and forth a little bit on what the right size should be for this print, the best way to present it. Ran proofs on a couple different types of paper so I could sort of see the look and feel, whether it's a ultra smooth fine art stock or if a little bit of texture would suit it better. You have like kind of a trade-off when you go from like a smooth stock to a textured stock, and whether it's hot press or cold press, that the ink will sit on the paper differently. So you might get a little more vibrant color when you go to the ultra smooth or like a nice smooth stock, and where you go to a textured paper, you might get more of like a pastel sort of feel from it.
The worst case scenario with a crappy fake ID? Someone gets turned away at a liquor store or club. But when it's an artist you respect and look up to, well, the stakes elevate themselves to a whole new level.
There are people that, I idolize these guys. They're so talented. There's so many years of influence and experience that goes in behind creating something like this. It's almost, I feel like, sacrilegious to touch it. I want to just pass it straight through and not leave any of me on it. Like, I want it to be exactly the way they envision it.